Good morning. While my windshield defrosts, I feel like I started another little video here. It's cold in Oregon today. We just got off of a little bit of kind of crazy weather. We got more rain in 2 days than we've gotten in the entire month of February. So that's pretty impressive. An atmospheric river, they call it. So that was but after that we've got really beautiful weather. So nice and clear, but at night getting very, very cold. So waiting for the windshield to defrost. While I do that, I figured I'd kind of talk about a couple other things, how we got here, continue that kind of storyline about how we have gotten this far. How do you start a winery with, I don't want to say with no money, but with very little money? How do you kind of dip your toe into this and see what works and see what doesn't? We've just tried to be cautious a lot of the way, because I think you can spend money forever. I think that's true of any business at all in the world. You can spend money and spend money and spend money. We had some constraints, so I kind of want to talk about how we navigated those, and maybe even highlight and focus on the importance of sweat equity, or at least how important it's been to our development and growth. So let's see, how did we start? So we began in 2019. We wanted to make wines that we were proud of, and we wanted to, I'd say that it was kind of like, this is going to be a proof of concept thing. We thought to ourselves, if we make something that we like, at the very worst case scenario, we'll have enough wine to drink for the rest of our lives. And if we, best case scenario, we sell it and make enough money to be able to do it again. And that was kind of always the thought, was how do we earn enough, earn the right to do it again. So we began by kind of figuring out what was going to be the best way to do it. So the best path forward for us, after we decided that we were going to go for this, was to find a vineyard site that we wanted to work with. We wanted to make wine of a certain typicity and with certain characteristics. So found Vista Grande, started to work with them, bought a couple tons of grapes. We started out kind of, we didn't have any of the equipment. We didn't have any of the stuff. We didn't have the space to do it, legally. So you can make an amount of wine in your garage, but you can't sell it, right? So you need to have all these licenses. So what we did was we started out by making wine in a custom crush facility. And what is that? A custom crush facility is a place that will allow you to make wine under their license. Some custom crush facilities allow you to do everything yourself. And then other custom crush companies, you have to pay them. You pay them a fee, and they kind of do everything. They say, you tell me what you want, and we'll do this thing. So we were the former. So we still wanted to do everything. We wanted to have control over what we were doing. And I like doing it. I know what to do. So we started out in a custom crush facility. So what we got is the licensing, utilizing their equipment, and a little bit of their space. So that's kind of, if you're looking at dipping your toe in, or interested in how any of these things start, that's how we started. Now, as we kind of went through that first year, we always kind of have looked for good opportunities. We look for good opportunities, and then we make good decisions. There's a lot of good opportunities out there that are terrible decisions. So remember that. That's kind of been our mantra the entire way. It's like, is this a good opportunity? There's good opportunities. If you're looking for them, there's a lot of really great opportunities out there. Is it a good decision is a completely different question, and it should be a very important follow-up question to your good opportunity. So having that ability to think those things through is really important, I think, in all business, but especially for what we've done, especially if you're constrained on capital. So that first year we did it that way, and a couple different opportunities presented themselves to us. Where I work, let me know that I could make wine at that facility. We're a little clear here, so I'm gonna start driving a little bit. Although my side windows are not, and you can see this one going real slow. So my employer let me know that hey, why don't you just make wine here, and then it'll be easier. And the reason that I didn't kind of try to take advantage of that in the first year was because we had just moved into a new facility, and I didn't want to be in the way. We'd never worked in that facility before, and I didn't ask. I wanted this, to be kind of separate. So ended up doing it at a place on the way to work. So on the way to work, I would go stop and do punch downs, and then on the way home, I would stop and do punch downs. So it was really, it was nice. It was kind of a good place to like have a little bit of a Zen moment as well. Get away from work, where I was making a ridiculous amount of wine, and go kind of have this thing that I would focus on, on either side of the shift, or actually, to be honest, sometimes I would leave in the middle and go to a punch down because the shifts are quite long sometimes into the 18 hours. But anyway, so that's kind of why we chose to do it in that fashion, and I'm really glad that we did. However, the opportunity did present itself later to start making wine at work where I worked. So that's a big cost savings for us. We ended up not having to spend the money on the space to rent. So I am really thankful that I was allowed to do that. And in their eyes, it was like, this guy wants to start his own winery. This is a very tough business. Good luck. Yeah, you can have that little spot in the corner. And we didn't make a large amount of wine. We weren't too much in the way. So that's kind of one of the first opportunities that we had to like figure out how to mitigate some costs. So mitigating costs has become a big piece. When you're starting out, you can do a couple different things, right? You can either have a bunch of money, or you can figure out where to save money. And I don't want this to sound like cutting corners. But what we have always tried to do is, if there's something that we can do ourselves, we try to do that. We mitigate that cost by, doing it ourselves. Now, will that scale? It will not. You eventually can't do everything. But finding these little small constraints and saying, how do we mitigate that? How do we get through that? And figure out where to put the money that we have made in the place that's going to help us to grow, right? So it's kind of the same idea as the Craigslist paperclip trade up to a Lamborghini or whatever that thing was. So that was kind of the first kind of step in. Okay, now we can go make the wine over here. That's going to save us some money. And I'm going to be closer to it. So that was, it wasn't just about saving the money, but it was, that was a big part. So able to save a little bit of money there and go make wine where I used to work. And that was really beneficial. I'm very thankful that they let me do that. So, that's kind of the first big thing where, we were able to, kind of eliminate one of those costs. Now, it wasn't a tremendous amount of money because we were, we only made 150, 200 cases. So, but as we kind of were growing, I was like, okay, this is going to give us a chance to spend money elsewhere. That's going to help us grow, either by volume or, either by volume or I don't know what else I was going to say, but it helped us grow a little bit by volume. Because here's the thing, the amount of money that we are allowed to make in a year comes directly from the amount of wine that we do make. So if we're going to grow the value of our business, what that mainly means is buying more grapes, right? Having more of the product to sell. So we need to buy more grapes, make a little bit more wine, and then our budget will grow to continue to do that and keep stacking those things on top of each other until we have a fully functioning winery in our own place. So that's our ultimate goal, is to have our own place and be farming our own land and making wine from that place. I do think that we'll still purchase grapes from lots of different people, because I think that's number one, I love those relationships. Love getting to work with those people. We'll talk more about that later, but I also think the Pinot Noir is so expressive that one of the most fun things about Pinot Noir is that it tastes different when it comes from different places. I just think that's one of the most unique things in the world, and I'm very passionate about showcasing that in what we do. All right, the stated goal is out there. That's what we want to get to. How have we gotten this far, and how do we get there in the future? So, we were able to kind of mitigate some costs by making wine where I worked. The second opportunity that we had was the owners of Vista Grande, the first vineyard that we ever bought grapes from, asked if I wanted to take over farming the vineyard. This is, well, first of all, I definitely wanted to. I thought of it as an incredible opportunity to, basically I was going to farm the vineyard for free, pay them a little bit for tractor use and wear and tear and chemicals and things like that, and we paid a small fee per acre. And I was going to do all of the work. So in exchange, somewhere in there, basically we were going to get greater volume out of that vineyard for a little bit less money, which again it's much less about, like, we're not I should make it pretty clear that our entire goal has been to grow this business. So it really hasn't been about how much money can I pull out of the business if we do this year? Everything about this, I was still working full time. Everything about this was, how do we make our money more impactful for our business? And we kind of came up with this phrase that we were just trying to weaponize our cash. So weaponizing cash. How do we take the money that we do have and make it become the most valuable that it possibly can be? So, and again, I just explained, mainly that's through buying more grapes for us. That's what gives us more money in the future. So saving a little bit of money and doing this work for free. Excuse me. Saving a little bit of money and doing this work for free opened us up to avenues where we were able to purchase fruit from other vineyards. We were able to write a list of vineyards down that we have always loved wine from, and figure out how to get in line or on the wait list, or start the conversations about how to start acquiring that fruit. So we ended up with, to name a couple, we ended up with Temperance Hill, one of the best vineyards I think in the world, especially in Oregon. Gregory Ranch, another renowned vineyard that had been farmed for a long time by the Bergstrom Winery, and then as they moved to single not single. As they moved to mainly estate only, the opportunity came for us to get a little bit of fruit from Gregory Ranch. I'd always loved the wines from there when I was working when I was working on the floor and selling wines. And when that opportunity came up, I definitely leapt on it. So those are a couple of opportunities. And then BZ Vineyard is another one that we've begun working with. And that's kind of how we looked at it. I looked at it as, if I can farm for every ton that I farm, I could buy 2 other tons. So again, this is, taking on a bunch of work myself was great because it allowed us to do those things and grow and find other vineyard partners, because Vista Grande is only 5 acres. We're not going to get the volume that we need to produce to stay in business from that one place. So that's kind of how we viewed it. It was really a wonderful stepping stone for our business, on top of which there were a lot of really unknown things that I didn't realize were going to become maybe the most valuable pieces. And honestly, the farming has become my favorite part. So I really am grateful that we looked at that opportunity and then took it. There were lots of times when I was standing there in the middle of the vineyard, thinking this is the stupidest thing I've ever done in my entire life. It's an unbelievable amount of work to do it all, and I was doing all of it by myself. So I wasn't hiring crews. I wasn't bringing in, and let me rephrase that. I was bringing in friends. We started doing this in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, and there wasn't much to do. So it was actually like kind of a blessing in disguise. I got to get outside and do some stuff and farm this vineyard. And I definitely recruited some friends. And I'm forever indebted to them. I can't believe I know this now, having worked a vineyard. There's no way I would ever do it for burritos and beers, which is what I paid them. So very lucky to have good friends come out and give me a hand. Now the other things that I would say I drew from that is the kind of unknown parts of the unknown. Let's see, what's the word I'm looking for here? There were kind of these little it's the morning. I haven't really had enough coffee to elaborate. These kind of just unforeseen little blessings, maybe we call them. These things that I didn't realize that were going to become so important and so invaluable and make us better. I had a little bit of tunnel vision and was like, oh, if we save this money over here, we can buy these other grapes. That's great. We're gonna, these places are famous. I had purchased thousands of tons of grapes in my life working for a large company. I knew everything that was supposed to be done on paper. I would go and meet with growers. There was an accounting team that told me this is the price that we pay. You got to negotiate, blah, 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 all that stuff. And I really started understanding the plight of the grower, where if this company's offering this amount of money and it costs X amount of money to farm the vineyard, somewhere in there it has to work out. No one wants to do this for a loss, and I'm understanding of that. So if you don't pay the person that's farming the grapes the right amount of money, they just skip things, and that's just because if you don't pay them enough, they're not going to operate at a loss, and so they'll just skip a couple steps maybe. And so working for a big winery, I saw this all the time. I would be negotiating the price down, and then I'd be in the winery trying to fix some problem that could have been fixed in the vineyard 3 months ago. And I found myself banging my head against the wall all the time. And I remember thinking, when we have our own, this is not how we're going to do it. This just isn't. And I understand the constraints. I certainly do, but we've got to figure out a better way to do this. So, going in and farming the vineyard, I got to touch every vine at least 10 times. There's 10,000, more than 10,000 vines, 10,371 to be exact. And to touch all of these vines 10 times, do every bit of work, and become intuitive and understanding in an incredible way. It's kind of up my street cred a little bit when I go out to talk to other growers. When I'm checking on grapes, I know what to look for now. The deep intrinsic knowledge that I now have from doing this is paramount. I think I truly believe that if you're not paying attention to what's going on in the vineyard, you won't make wine that is as good. I should say that in a different way. By paying attention in the vineyard, the quality of your wine will be increased dramatically. I don't know if there's a scalable number that I can think of, but it will be better. If you're paying attention in the vineyard, it will be better. That intuitiveness has now come in handy. There have been numerous times where I've gone out. I like to start checking. I like to start sampling a little earlier than a lot of people do, because I want to see a trend. It's not that I think that the grapes are going to be ready. It's that I want to be able to track a trend through the vineyard. And there have been times where I've been out and started tracking the trend and realized the grapes were much riper than people had thought, and kind of like put up the alarm bells on, not alarm bells, but mention to folks that were farming it or other people that were purchasing. Hey, these are, get ready, these are coming. So that's been hugely advantageous, and I try to visit each of our vineyard partners, maybe not partners, but at least the vineyard, at least twice a month, and then much more frequently as things are growing, and as weather dictates. So by being constrained, it kind of forced us to make all these like little decisions, and what it's done from the outset is help me have more knowledge about our business. And I think that's a really important piece that people sometimes miss. If you are starting a company, and even if you had enough money to do whatever you wanted, if you want to be hands-on with your business, if you want to be hands-on with what you're doing, understanding and knowing that from the bottom up how the business is built and runs, is just going to make you a better business owner. It's just going to make you a better winemaker. I don't want to just be on business here, but these are just things that we've kind of looked at, and as we kind of go through this, there's just a lot of parallels to growing grapes and business that I think are really, really important, and have kind of built a framework in my mind of what's good for this in the future. You're kind of shooting from the hip a lot of the time. If you're growing plants, you're shooting from the hip a lot of the time. If you're growing a business, you've got to kind of like have a little bit of foresight, and know that sometimes when you're doing things in the immediacy, that they will pay off in the long term, but you've got to have some sort of faith or belief that that's going to happen. And it's never just one thing that you did. It's continuing to focus. If you want to grow grapes, we're going to prune in the winter. Does that guarantee that we're going to have a fruitful crop? Not completely. It's gonna make an impact for sure. Decisions you make in January are going to affect throughout the growing season, but you got to do a bunch of other things throughout the growing season as well. It's not just one thing, and so I think that's something to remember to keep in mind. You make a decision, and then you have to make that decision be the right one as you go along. So those are just kind of ways that we did that. Now, as we grow, I'm not able to do all of this all the time, but I now feel like I'm much better prepared for things that I need to look for in the vineyard as we grow. So, you know, that was easy when we only made like 500 cases of wine. Now we make 2,500 cases of wine, so we've 5x'd that since 2020, which is when I started the farming. And you know, when I think of and look at that, you know, now making this volume of wine is much harder. You know, I'm paying attention. You know, it's topping barrels takes a lot longer now. It's not just a quick stop in. When I had 6 barrels, it was like, this is awesome. I just pop in, top them up. Now we have like 80. So I think more than that. I don't know the exact number. I should know that number. But knowing what's scalable and what's not scalable, as far as your labor, your inputs, your work goes, is you know, something that you kind of figure out on your way. And those are the things that we've had to learn. You know, we have distribution in 8 different states, and so when I look at that, I've got to go support the sales in those states. So there's just a lot of different things where our business has changed, and we've had to say, hey, our business has changed. Now where will the time be valuable to help us get to where we want to go? Because we're not going to get where we want to go by just farming someone else's land. It's just not going to happen. So we've got to start doing things to put ourselves in the position to attain the goals that we have for ourselves. You know, we want to be able to have a place in Oregon that people can come. We want, you know, people can come visit us now, but we want to be able to taste wine and share that experience with people, because I think that's what's really important. We don't want to have a company that's so large that you don't get to talk to the winemaker. I like talking to people. If you can't tell, making videos, I like talking to people, and I think that the human connection is incredibly important these days, and connecting over wine is just a beautiful thing. So hopefully that's coming through. I've now gotten to the winery. I am about to put together some blends of the 2023 vintage, and then I'm flying out to Atlanta tonight on the red eye to work the market in Atlanta, and then also do a couple of events at Auburn University, which will be really, really great. We'll get to talk to some students about how we've built this business, and do a couple of events with the community. So it's going to be a really, really fun time. This is the second year that we've gone to Auburn, and it's fun to be back in the South. Hopefully get a little more sunshine than we've had up here lately. But anyway, ask questions if you got them. Thanks for listening.